Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2006 GMC Savannah 3500 with a 6.0 liter. The complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on while the engine is running. The driver stated that the van drives good, there is no drivability concerns, but the only problem is the check engine light that's remaining on while the engine is running. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go inside the vehicle and confirm the complaint. After confirming the complaint, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do so we can fix whatever that's causing the check engine light to remain on while the engine is running. So now let's go in the vehicle and confirm the complaint. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and the check engine light remained on. So driver's complaint confirmed. So now I'm going to turn off the engine. I'm gonna get the scan tool connected to the vehicle and then I'll bring you guys back up. So now let's scan the engine computer. The scan tool is done scanning all the control units on the vehicle. We have one trouble code in the engine computer and the trouble code is P0449 and it says EVAP system vent control circuit low, and the same code is also set in the transmission control unit. So let's scroll down and see what other trouble codes we have in the other control units. We have one trouble code in the ABS control unit and it says left front wheel speed sensor circuit fault. We got one trouble code in the BCM, headlight control circuit fault, and that's it. So we're gonna focus on the engine computer. So I'm going to click over here where it says engine. This vehicle has a throttle cable. Now this trouble code over here is the code that's causing the check engine light to remain on while the engine is running. This circuit low trouble code is usually caused by an open in the vent solenoid wiring because the computer watches the voltage on the control wire. So there is a fuse that sends power to the solenoid. So this is a two-wire solenoid. There is power on one wire. The power on the power supply wire flows through the winding of the solenoid and then it makes it out the control wire. It goes back to the computer, and when the computer sees this power, that's how the computer knows that the circuit integrity is fine. Okay, if the computer doesn't see 12 volts in the control wire, it sets this trouble code. And usually when I see this trouble code set, the problem ends up being an open in the wiring or an open fuse or an open vent solenoid itself. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back out of here. I'm gonna erase this trouble code. Let's see if this trouble code is gonna come back up after we erase it. So I erased the code. Let's read the code again. As you can see, no codes present. So now let's start the engine and see what happens. Let's see if this code is gonna come back after we start the engine. So as you can hear, the engine is running. Our trouble code is not there. So right there, our trouble code came back up. Okay, so this is a hard fault. So this fault is present as we speak. So let me back out. So let me clear this once again. Let's go to codes. As you can see, this code is not being cleared. We most likely have a problem in the vent solenoid wiring, or the solenoid itself is bad. Okay, so now I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key back on. We know that this fault code is present as we speak. So let's back out. Now I'm going to show you the wiring diagram. Let's see how this solenoid is wired and then we're gonna go under the vehicle to the solenoid to do some tests at the solenoid electrical connector. But before we go to the solenoid, I want to show you how it's wired first. So here is our vent solenoid. As you can see, it's a 2-wire solenoid. So I'm going to highlight these 2 wires. So this is our power supply wire. So this wire supplies power to the vent solenoid. If we follow this wire up here, we're going to see that this wire is coming from a fuse. So right here, fuse 34, it's a 10 amp fuse. So this fuse supplies power to the vent solenoid. So with the key on, engine off, we should have 12 volt on this red wire at the solenoid. And then this other wire over here is the control wire. So there is power here, and then the computer sends ground down this wire to turn on the solenoid. Okay? So now let's follow this other wire, this wire over here. So it is wire 20. So let's go to the next page. So over here, so this is 20. So if we follow wire 20 all the way to the engine computer, what does it say? It says EVAP vent control. So this is the control wire of the vent solenoid. Okay, so with that being said, let's go under the vehicle and do some tests at the vent solenoid electrical connector. So since we're gonna lift the vehicle up, I'm gonna connect these jumper cables to the battery. I want to make sure that we have good power and good ground while we are under the vehicle to test the wiring of the vent solenoid. So I'm gonna connect these to the battery. Okay, I have to make sure I have good power and good ground that I'm gonna use to test the wiring of the vent solenoid under the vehicle. I have the key on in the vehicle. As you can see, I have my jumper cables coming from the battery. Okay, they're coming down here with me. So we have good power on this red clamp, and we got good ground on this black clamp. So here's our vent solenoid. Okay, so as you can see, it's a 2-wire solenoid. We should have power on this red wire over here, and this white wire is the control wire. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to clear the code and turn on the vent solenoid with my scan tool to see if it's gonna click. So I'm gonna bring you down here. So let's look at the scan tool. The scan tool is still connected to the vehicle. And these solenoids are really loud. So when this solenoid comes on, we should be able to hear it. So I'm gonna clear the code and let's see if it's gonna come on. But I'm pretty sure it's not gonna come on because we have a code that's coming back. So right now we don't have any codes present. So let's go to functional test. Let's go to output controls right here. Vent solenoid on/off. So I'm gonna try to turn it on. Okay, so on, nothing, off, on, off, on. So our solenoid is not making noise. Okay, so it's not turning on because of the trouble code that we have, the problem that we have right now that's present. Okay, so let's look at the solenoid once again. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test the wiring of the solenoid. So I'm gonna disconnect it. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect a test light across these 2 wires and see if my test light is gonna light when I turn on the solenoid with the scan tool. If the test light lights, that will tell me that the vent solenoid is open. Okay, so I'm going to reconnect it. I'm going to back probe these 2 wires. So we're back probing these two wires. So we're gonna use this tiny test light to test the wiring of the vent solenoid. So I'm gonna connect this clamp to one back probe tool, and then the other one is gonna be connected to the other back probe. So right here. Okay, so we have our test light there. So now I'm gonna turn on the vent solenoid with my scan tool, and let's see if this test light is gonna come on. Actually, I'm gonna disconnect it. Okay, so the test light is connected to the solenoid wiring. So let's look at the scan tool. So on. Let's look at the vent solenoid. So right now the vent solenoid is on and the test light did not light. So we have a problem in this wiring. So let's test our test light first. Okay. So I'm gonna disconnect this. So I'm gonna connect one side of my test light to this power here. And then the other side of the test light, I'm gonna connect it to this clamp. I'm gonna use this jumper wire. Okay, so if I connect it to this, if my test light is good, my test light should light. Okay, so right here. As you can see, my test light is lit. So we have good power and good ground at our jumper cables. So now what I'm gonna do is let's test our power supply wire to the vent solenoid first. So I'm going to move this and connect it over here. So this side of the test light is connected to ground. So this over here. Okay. So this side of the test light is connected to this ground. So now we're going to connect this side to the power supply wire of the vent solenoid. And since we have ground on one side of the test light, my test light should light. So look at that. My test light is not lighting. So we are missing power at the vent solenoid. Okay? So now what we're gonna do is let's test our control wire. So I'm going to move my test light to the control wire. Which is the white wire. So right there, my test light is now connected to the red back probe tool, which is back probing the control wire. Now I'm gonna move this wire, this jumper wire, from ground to positive. Okay, so we're gonna connect it over here to battery positive. Okay, so we have power on one side. Look at this, my test light is lit. Okay, because our vent solenoid is on. So over here on the scan tool, we are showing on. So I'm gonna turn it off. Now our test light should be off. As you can see, my test light is off. So I'm gonna leave my test light here. So I want you guys to watch the test light as I'm turning the vent solenoid on and off with the scan tool. See that? On, off, on, off. So what do we know now? So what we know is we are missing power at the vent solenoid. So now what I'm gonna do is, so since we have power over here, okay, we have power on this side of the test light, I'm gonna connect this wire coming from this clamp, so battery positive on this clamp. So now I'm gonna connect it to my power supply wire of the vent solenoid. So I can remove the test light right now. So we're done with the test light. So now I want to make sure that we're missing power over here. So I'm sending straight power from this clamp to our power supply wire on the vent solenoid. So if the only thing we're missing is power, now when I turn on the solenoid, it should click. So listen, you hear that? I hope you can hear that. So our solenoid is now clicking. So what I'm doing here is I'm just turning this on and off. Listen. Good. So basically I can remove this already. So our control wire is good. The problem is in the power feed of the vent solenoid. Okay, so when we send power to the vent solenoid, the solenoid works. When we remove the power we send to it, the vent solenoid stops working. So watch. Now it's no longer working. But if I connect this jumper wire, there is power on this jumper wire. If I connect it to this back probing tool, now I'm going to turn on the vent solenoid. You hear that? Okay, so that's good. Now this can be as easy as a blown fuse. Okay, so since we know we don't have power at the vent solenoid, let's lower the vehicle and check the fuse in the fuse box under the hood. Let's make sure the fuse that sends power to this vent solenoid is good. So now let's go under the hood and check the fuse. So we are done using these jumper cables. We can remove them. So we're gonna use this test light. I'm gonna connect my test light to ground, battery ground. So if I touch power, my test light should light. I mean, if the test light is good. So right there, test light lights. Okay, so our fuse box is over here. So we're gonna remove the cover of the fuse box. So there's our fuse box. Now we're gonna find fuse 34 over here. So here's fuse 34. Right here, 34, it says canister vent. Okay, and 34 is right here. Okay, so right there. So fuse 34 should be this one over here. So if that fuse is good with the key on, we should have power on both sides of the fuse. And right now the key is on, so let's test it. So right there we have power on one side of the fuse. Let's test the other side. So right there, power. So test light lights, test light lights. Okay, so the vent solenoid fuse is good. So what do you do when you have good control to the solenoid, the fuse is good? So what's the problem? What's the problem, guys? Well, you know, we have an open between the fuse and the vent solenoid. So the red wire that supplies power to the vent solenoid is open. And this can be a very difficult process, trying to figure out where the open is. As you can see, we have wires going around and all over the place. So where do you start? Let's start from the vent solenoid and work our way up to the fuse box. Okay, so we're gonna go under the vehicle. Let's go back under the vehicle and look around the wiring harness and see if we're gonna see an area where the harness is rubbing against the frame. Okay, so let's go start from the vent solenoid and work our way back. So we are back down here. We're gonna remove our jumper wires. Okay, so now we need to figure out where the open is on this wiring. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect this wire. Let's check the connector. The connector looks good. I want to look at these wires over here. Let's see. So the wires look good. I'm gonna try to pull these wires and see if the wire is gonna break. Okay, so these two wires go into this main harness over here. Okay, so it goes into this main harness which goes over the frame. So let's follow this harness. So it's this one over here. Now what we need to do is we have to see if this harness is rubbing against the frame. Okay. So nothing. So let's open up this. So let's see if we can find those two wires over here on this harness. So let's find our vent solenoid wires up here. So basically we're gonna check this section of the wiring from this point back to the vent solenoid. So this wire, these two wires look like the vent solenoid wires. Okay, so let's open up this whole section here. Oh, check this out. You see that? So let me zoom you guys in. Oh, look at that. We got lucky, guys. Oh, there's actually another wire here. That's also bad. So I bet this is our power supply wire to the vent solenoid. Now if I pull this, I'm sure, there you go. See this? It's gonna break. So as you can see, our wire is broken. So this is the wire that supplies power to the vent solenoid. So this wire was corroded. Okay, so we got lucky, guys. We were able to find this pretty easily. So I'm gonna fix this wire, and I'm also gonna fix the other wire. Which one is it? We had a... So I'm gonna go through all these wires and make sure they're all good. Okay, the ones that are bad, I'm gonna fix them all. But this over here is mainly our problem. Okay, so I'm gonna fix these wires. I'm gonna do that off camera. I'm gonna fix all these wires, and then I'll bring you guys back up once I get all these wires fixed, and then we're gonna test our repair to see if this is gonna fix the problem. But I'm pretty sure after we fix this wire, our problem is gonna be fixed. Okay, so look at this one. Alright, so I'm gonna fix this wire and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I fixed the wire. I did use these shrink type butt connectors. These are good ones. Okay, so I don't know what caused this wire to corrode, but we did fix the wire. I checked the other wires, they are all good. So this over here is the only wire that required fixing. Okay, so the other wires are good. Now, before I put all the wires back in the wire loom, I'm going to reconnect our vent solenoid. I'm gonna reconnect it. Okay. I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and turn the key on, and after that we're gonna turn the vent solenoid on with the scan tool. I still have my scan tool dongle connected to the vehicle, so I'm gonna turn the key on. So key is on. I hope that vent solenoid is gonna be loud enough so we can hear it. I hope you can hear it. So I'm gonna put the camera down here. I'm gonna put the camera down here so you can hear the vent solenoid click. So I hope you heard the vent solenoid click. So now let's erase the trouble code. I'm gonna erase the trouble code and start the engine, and I'm sure after that our trouble code won't come back. As you can see, our trouble code is not present. So now let's start the engine and see what happens. As you can hear, the engine is running and our trouble code is not coming back up. Remember before, after we cleared the code, the trouble code came back right away, just after a few seconds. So since the code is not coming back, I'm sure this is fixed. I'm gonna turn off the engine. Let's turn the key back on. Let's back out. I'm gonna erase all the codes from all these modules. Okay, so we're gonna clear all the codes, and then we're gonna scan all the control units again, and I'm sure our trouble code won't come back. So let's do a code scan. Let's do a post scan. So right there, as you can see, no codes in the engine computer. So we have erased all the trouble codes. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to get my scan tool out of the way. Okay, I'm going to start the engine. So right there, we don't have any lights on the dash. Okay, so this is good. So I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna get all the wires back in the wire loom. I'm gonna get everything reconnected and put back together under the vehicle. I'm gonna do that off camera, and after that we're gonna test drive the vehicle. After test driving the vehicle, if the check engine light doesn't come back on, we're gonna wrap up this video. Okay, I'm gonna put everything back together and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I got everything back together. I got the wiring in the wire loom. As you can see, everything looks nice and clean. And our vent solenoid over here is reconnected. I got the wires in the wire loom. So right here. So we're good to go. So now I'm gonna lower the vehicle so we can take it for a test drive. The vehicle drives well. The check engine light is off. There are no lights on the dash. So this is good. So this is fixed, guys. Knowing that our trouble code was coming back after we erased it, now it's not coming back, so this is fixed. I can tell that this is fixed, okay? So we don't have to go very far. I'm gonna turn around and drive back to the shop And when I get back to the shop, I will bring you guys back up so we can wrap up this video. So see you guys at the shop. As you can see, we don't have a trouble code in any of these control units, so we're good to go. This is fixed. I wanted to scan the engine computer again because after fixing that vent solenoid circuit trouble code, it's always good to drive the vehicle and scan the engine computer again, because when you have that vent solenoid circuit code, the computer doesn't test the system. After fixing that code, the computer is going to test the system, and if there's a leak in the EVAP system, it's going to set EVAP leak codes, small or large leak codes. So as you can see, we don't have a code in the engine computer, so this is fixed. I'm gonna leave this right over here. I hope you liked the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why so we can make better videos in the future. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.